July 14th, 2024. The lieutenants didn't come to get us at the usual time this morning. We still woke up at 4. We still filed into the mess hall for breakfast. The Nutriloaf was still there. But the lieutenants and Sergeant Hunter weren't. I heard some of the other guys saying that they were having a meeting. I don't know what they needed to have a fucking meeting about. Something in the woods killed Cody. What exactly was there to discuss? They should have called the police the moment they found him, but there haven't been any police. None that I've seen. Last night I watched Lieutenant Chad and David carry the body, wrapped in a tarp, out to the back of the main office. Up until this afternoon, it was just sitting there and rotting. I don't know where it is now. Why the hell didn't they call the police? Do they have something to hide? I didn't think they had anything to do with Cody's death, but now I'm starting to wonder. I've thought about calling the police myself, but every time I reach for my phone I freeze. What exactly happens if I do call the police? We were the only ones out there with Cody. What if they think we did it? No, that's not what I'm worried about. I should be honest here, shouldn't I? I keep thinking about Cody's body. I keep thinking about the ragged stumps where his limbs used to be, and I keep thinking about that girl. I tried to talk to the guys about it after breakfast, while we all just sat uneasily in the mess hall, but that was just a waste of time. It took off his arms and legs, I'd said. You guys don't think it's weird that it took off his arms and legs? Keelan got quiet, but it was harder reading the looks on the others' faces. Something mauled him, Adam said calmly. Simple as that. And put him up in a fucking tree? I asked. You saw what I saw, didn't you? Something grabbed him while Matthew wasn't looking, peeled him like a fucking orange, pulled off his arms, pulled off his legs, and strung him up in a tree where we would find him. That doesn't fucking scare you? Adam didn't respond. Avery's got a point, Keelan said quietly. Even if it was an animal, the way it took his arms and legs, doesn't that remind you of Dash? Enough, Adam said, his voice firm and decisive. We need to stay focused. Focused on what? Keelan asked. What, are we supposed to go outside and run around until Chad tells us what to do? Cody's dead. Why the hell are we taking this in stride? Because that's what men do, Adam snapped. Now are you gonna be a fucking man, Keelan, or are you just going to go through life whining and simpering like a little bitch? Keelan just stared at him. What the fuck is wrong with you, man? He asked. What the fuck is actually wrong with you? His eyes shifted to all of us and lingered especially long on me. What's it going to be, Keelan? Adam asked coldly. Keelan shook his head. Fuck you guys, fuck this fucking Project Alpha horseshit, fucking podcasts bro, alpha male bullshit. You know it's just fucking astrology for incels, right? Fuck you. And fuck Nutriloaf. He hurled his half-eaten portion of Nutriloaf against the wall before storming off. I got up to follow him, but Adam stopped me. Leave him, he warned. I noticed an unfamiliar venom in his eyes. Let him walk away. If he wants to whine and complain, then let him. He's weak, we're stronger without him. I didn't respond. I didn't really know how to. I just stared and watched as Keelan stormed out. The lieutenants and Sergeant Hunter finally came to collect us around 5:30. We watched in silence as Sergeant Hunter took his place at the front of the mess hall, flanked by the lieutenants. He seemed to hesitate for a moment before he finally spoke. All right, gentlemen. I understand that today we've gone a little off schedule, and I want to thank you for your patience. As many of you are aware, yesterday there was an incident that resulted in the loss of a life. Our understanding is that there was some kind of animal attack that occurred during Cabin 2's survival training excursion. Animal attack? A vivid memory of Cody's corpse, partially flayed and hanging from the branches by countless strips of skin flashed through my mind. Animal attack? Was he fucking serious? I looked around to gauge the reactions of the others at my table. None of their faces were easy to read, but there's no way they believed this, right? There was no way they were just going to accept that this was just an animal attack. We have been in touch with the appropriate authorities regarding next steps. Sergeant Hunter continued. Another bold-faced lie, but nobody called him on it. Nobody questioned it. And until further notice, we will be continuing with the program in a modified state. Due to safety concerns, survival training will not be carried out until we receive the all-clear, and we will be implementing a curfew during your free hours in the evening. After dinner at 7, you will either return to your cabin or you can attend the bonfire. Is that clear? Everyone responded with a stoic, "Yes, sir," but none of them seemed to consider how fucking stupid those rules were. There was nowhere else to go aside from the bonfire and the cabin. And then there was the fact that he'd lied about contacting the authorities. Did nobody else notice any of this? Or did they just not care? The purpose of Project Alpha is to push you, to break you down, but not to destroy you. I am heartbroken to have lost a brother today. But now isn't the time to mope and cry and sit around. We came here for a purpose, and we are going to fulfill that purpose together as brothers. Now who is with me? We are, sir, came the reply. Deus Vult! Sergeant Hunter cried. Now let's get back out there. In an instant, the shadow of Cody's death seemed to vanish. Everyone seemed energized. Our group followed Lieutenant Chad out of the mess hall, and the day just sort of pressed on the way it normally would have. We started with our jog, with not even a second thought about what had happened to Cody. As we ran, I found myself falling behind this time. I couldn't focus on running. I just couldn't, and when Lieutenant Chad started tearing into me for it, I couldn't for the life of me be bothered to give a shit. Come on, Mackenzie, move your ass! You're holding your brother's back. You know how to run, I fucking know you do. So move! I just stared at him, my pace slowing down as everyone else got further and further away. Why was I doing this? This wasn't a real fucking boot camp. Why was I even fucking bothering with this? They're fucking leaving you behind, Mackenzie. You wanna be left in the fucking dust? Move! I stopped. Lieutenant Chad stopped too, and for a moment we just sort of stared each other down. Or, staring each other down wouldn't be the right way to describe it. That would imply some sort of hostility. I didn't get any sense of real hostility from him. If anything, he just didn't really seem to give a shit. When I turned to leave, he didn't try to stop me. Didn't make any effort to yell after me. He just turned and went to go and catch up with the others while I jogged back to the cabin. When I finally got back to the cabin, I found Keelan laying on his bed. He seemed to just be staring into space and barely even seemed to notice me when I came in. If you're gonna ask me to come back, then fuck off. I'm done with this shit, he said bitterly. Actually, I'm here to join you, I said before sitting on his bed. He scoffed but didn't respond. Sergeant Hunter came in after you left, I said. He gave this whole speech, said they talked to the police about Cody but dash. Bullshit. There haven't been any fucking police. Keelan snapped. He's out behind the fucking office. I've seen him. He sat up, fidgeting with his phone. They probably won't call the fucking police. I mean, look at this shit show. How much of this shit do you think is on the books? I'll bet they slapped this shit together under the table as cheaply as possible. You think these guys are equipped to handle a fucking body turning up during their little program? And fuck. Cody, that wasn't natural. That wasn't an accident or an animal attack or whatever they're gonna fucking claim it was. It was. He trailed off, unable to finish that sentence. I know, I said quietly. Keelan was staring down at his phone. I could see him willing himself to make that call, but he couldn't, and I knew why he couldn't. Did you ever look to see if it was in the news? He asked quietly. It took me a moment to realize what he was asking about. No, I said softly. I didn't really want to know. She's still alive, they both are. I looked up at him. Critical condition last I checked, but alive. I think one's in a coma, that's what the report said. They posted their names. I looked them up, fuck. I tried to open my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. I looked them up, lurked them online. Found some photos, that one girl, the one we hit, she. He choked on the words for a moment before he continued. I saw her, in a hospital bed. She was covered by a blanket, but you could see where the stumps were, where her legs weren't, and… God, we did that to her. We fucking did that to her and… His hands were shaking. His breathing was getting heavier, almost to the point of hyperventilating. We did that to her, Avery, and we just drove away like nothing happened. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think. He trailed off, breaking down into sobs, but I still knew he was lying. I reached into my pocket for my own phone and stared down at it thoughtfully. Maybe he was too scared to do what needed to be done, but right now, I wasn't. Consequences be damned. Before I could do anything though, I heard the cabin door fly open. I looked up to see Adam storming in, his usually placid expression twisted in anger. His eyes fixated on me and I saw rage burning inside of them. What the hell is wrong with you? He demanded. You can't just leave the group whenever you feel like it. We're a unit, Avery. We don't go off on our own. A unit, I repeated. We're not in the fucking military, Adam. We're not going to fucking war. This is just some fucking fantasy boot camp. It's bullshit. It's training, Adam snarled. I don't care. Does no one else fucking give a shit about what happened to Cody? Is no one else fucking paying attention? He's dead, Adam. Cody's fucking dead and we're just gonna go on a jog? They didn't even call the fucking police. Keelan rambled. They're just leaving him there, out behind the office. They're not calling anyone. They're not doing anything about it. What the fuck do you want them to do? Adam demanded. Call the police? For fuck's sake, Adam, that's the bare fucking minimum here. Sergeant Hunter Dash stood up there in front of all of us and lied. I snapped. Look around, Adam. Do you see any cops? Did you see any last night? Has anyone talked to us? No, they're not calling the cops. For some stupid fucking reason, they're not calling the cops. Adam finally noticed the cell phone in my hand. Where did you get that? He asked. Were you holding on to that the whole time? Who gives a fuck? I asked. But I'm not gonna just stand by and dash. Adam lunged at me, grabbing at the phone in my hand. I tried to keep it away from him, but he was stronger than I was. He dragged me down to the ground, before slamming his fist into my face hard enough to leave me seeing stars. I couldn't help but gasp as I collapsed to the floor, fresh blood spewing from my newly broken nose. From the corner of my eye, I saw Keelan scrambling away from him, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and Adam. I didn't see his phone in his hand anymore. He was at least smart enough to hide it when Adam came in. Unfortunately for me, my phone was ripped out of my hand, and Adam spiked it to the ground before crushing it under his foot, stomping down on it until the screen cracked and the frame warped. No! The word tumbled out of my mouth, but it did nothing to stop him. Adam kicked the broken phone back to me, a look of utter contempt on his face. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I cried, my mouth filling with blood from my nose. This is not just some fantasy," he said, his eyes wide and wild. "Not to me. Life is war, Avery. Life is constant battle, and we are here to train. God called us here, Avery. We are here because God wills it. Each and every trial we face is a gift from Him. Don't you get it? That's why I wanted us here. We need to face the coming trials together." His eyes shifted to Keelan. "Together," he repeated. "And when we emerge victorious, we will be reforged into our truest selves. This is what He wants for us. This is what we need." I stared at Adam, and I knew in that moment that the kid I'd grown up with, the person I always saw as a friend, was long gone. I realized for the first time that I hadn't known Adam Yakimek in a long, long time. I'd pretended I did, but now that I was staring into the eyes of the person he'd become, I only saw a stranger. "What about Cody?" I asked bitterly. "Cody was always a weak link," he said, his tone almost apologetic. "God tested him and he failed. But the rest of us won't. God won't let us fail. We are destined to be His warriors, and He will always guide our footsteps. Always." He looked between us, his usual mask of stoicism slipping back over the madness I'd glimpsed underneath. "Let's get back on track," he said. "Come on. I need you both for the trials ahead." "Fuck you, man," Keelan spat. "I'm done with this shit. I'm getting the fuck out of here." Adam's look soured. "Then you're a coward," he said. "Abandon God and He will abandon you." "Fuck off," Keelan spat. Then without another word he pushed past Adam and stormed out of the cabin. "Go on, run from him," Adam yelled after him. "Run back to your fucking life of depravity, and when your sins catch up to you, I will not save you." His attention shifted to me next. "And what about you?" he asked. I just glared at him, before quietly pushing past him and heading for the door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't care to. I left. I expected Adam to yell after me too, but he didn't. He just watched as I followed Keelan out. The sky had been overcast all morning, but only now was it starting to rain. I could see Keelan up ahead, trudging past the hastily painted-over sign and toward the grassy clearing where a few cars were parked. He stayed by the trees as he took out his phone, and I could see him fidgeting with it. He was still looking at it by the time I caught up with him. He looked up at me, and after a moment of thinking, he finally spoke. "I'm calling a ride. I'll pay for half if I can come with," I replied. He just gave an exasperated half-nod before leaning against a tree, still tapping away at his phone. "Are you just calling a ride?" I asked. He paused, looking up at me again. "When we get the fuck out of here, then I'm calling the cops." I wanted to argue with him about that, but maybe he had a point. It would have been easier if we were gone when the police arrived. Logically, I knew they probably wouldn't even think to question anyone about what had happened the other night, but that quiet fear still lingered in the back of my mind, and I knew it was in the back of Keelan's mind too. Keelan stared down at his phone. His usual light-hearted demeanor was completely gone. He looked tired and barely even resembled the Keelan I knew. Neither of us spoke for a while. We just sort of stood there and stewed. My mind shifted back to Cody. It was strange, thinking about him as dead. It was surreal equating the heavy-set, baby-faced guy I'd known with the mangled remains we'd seen the other day. I'd never really known anybody who died before, and it just felt so odd thinking about how he was just gone now. He was gone, and nobody outside of our group knew it. Oh God, that thought turned my stomach a little. Shit, what are we gonna tell his mom? I said to myself. Keelan looked up at me. What? Cody's mom. I mean, he was really all she had, wasn't she? She wouldn't even know he's dead yet. I mean, should we call her or? I'm gonna be honest, I don't fucking care. Keelan replied softly. What the hell? He was your friend, what the hell do you mean you don't dash? Was he? Keelan snapped. Think about it, be honest with me. Are any of us really friends? We're Adam's friends, sure. But how do you actually fucking like anyone else we hang around with? 'Cause to tell you the truth, I don't. I was silent for a moment. Keelan smoothed back his hair and sighed. I just hung around with Adam 'cause our parents were friends and nobody really bothered me when I was hanging out with him. My parents liked him. I don't really know why, but it made me think that maybe there was something about him to look up to, and maybe it'd rub off on me if I stuck around with him long enough. Up until today I didn't hate him, but... He trailed off, unsure how to finish that thought. Everyone else, though. I tried, I guess. But Leo's probably the most insufferable, smug piece of shit I've ever met in my life. You can't even hold a conversation with Matthew because he's got the emotional range of a fucking brick wall. Cody, fuck me. I wanted to like Cody, but did you ever sit down and actually try to have a conversation with the guy? He was a fucking loser. I'm sorry that he's dead. I am. But every time we were together and Adam wasn't there to make him shut up, all he'd talk about was this weird incel shit. And you? You act like you're so above everyone else, like we're all just annoying background noise to you, but you don't do shit for yourself. At least Adam, Leo, Matthew, and Cody actually bought into this place's bullshit. You only came here because Adam told you to. His words caught me off guard. I didn't really know how to respond to that. Keelan just stared at me, before shaking his head again. Guess I'm not any fucking better, but I was hoping that maybe there'd be something here. I was hoping that maybe I'd finally find whatever I needed to make me more like Adam. Guess I kinda did. I should have seen the fucking signs ages ago. Of course he's fucking crazy. And I'm fucking crazy for not noticing it years ago when all of the red flags were right there. His breathing had gotten a little heavier. There was a faraway look in his eyes, and he went quiet for a moment before looking back down at his phone. Oh, what the fuck? He said under his breath. He looked back up at me. The fucking ride cancelled. Too far from a pickup zone, what the hell? He went back to fidgeting with his phone, trying to get us some sort of ride while I still struggled to think up some sort of retort to what he just said about me. Before anything could come to mind, though, I noticed Lieutenant Chad coming over to us, carrying a pair of familiar plastic bins. Since Keelan was occupied, I went over to take them. Adam says you're checking out, he said. His tone was hard to read, but he didn't sound disappointed. Yeah, I said curtly. Sorry, it's just not for us. Hey, no worries, man. You made it longer than some guys have. Is one of these cars yours, or do you have some sort of ride coming? Keelan's taking care of it, I said. Chad nodded. All right. Well, if you guys want to wait in the office, I'll leave it unlocked for you. Or if you just want to avoid the other guys, I could unlock my car. I raised an eyebrow. Looked like you and your buddies had a pretty rough falling out. I get it, Chad said. I know how it goes. The car would be nice, I said. Chad just gave a nod and led me over toward an old rusted Ram 1500 that still had most of its blue paint left. He unlocked the door for me and I put our bins in the back seat. Thanks, I said. Look, it's been a shit show the last couple of days. I get it, he said. I don't even know if we're gonna end up finishing out the month. It's just... He trailed off, before shaking his head, not wanting to say any more. He opened his mouth as if he was about to say something else, but in an instant I saw the look on his face change. What the fuck? I watched as he left my side to crouch beside the tires of his truck, tires which were completely deflated. What the fuck? He said again, circling around his truck. I followed him. All 4 of his tires were completely flat. Fuck, 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 he murmured under his breath, and that's when I finally noticed it. It wasn't just Chad's tires that were flat. All of the cars had flat tires. It was hard to notice through the tall grass around us, but every car's tires were completely flat. No, not flat. Slashed. I felt a sinking feeling in my chest as that realization dawned on me. Someone, had gone through and slashed the tires of every single car out there. I could suddenly feel eyes on me, coming from seemingly every direction at once. What the fuck? Chad had finally noticed the other cars as well. He stared out at them, a look of what I can only describe as utter bewilderment on his face as he tried to make sense of what he was looking at. And then the screaming started. Keelan. That scream. I've never heard that kind of terror in a human voice before. I spun around, just in time to see something dragging him up into the tree he'd been leaning against. I didn't get a good look at it. I only saw the long, spindly limbs with too many joints. Half of them wrapped around Keelan, holding him close while the rest dragged that thing back up into the foliage. For just a moment, I was reminded of a massive spider, but there was no way a spider could have ever grown that big. Not out here. Keelan's shrieks of terror still echoed in my ears. I remained frozen to the spot. Beside me, Chad went rigid, eyes almost popping out of his skull. For a moment, I expected him to move, to run toward the tree line as if he could somehow save Keelan, but he remained still. I'm not sure if he was paralyzed by fear, just like I was, or if he already knew that there was no saving him. That didn't make listening to his screams any easier. We just stood there, frozen, almost unable to process what had just happened as Keelan's bone-chilling screams echoed through the clearing. Then, all at once they stopped. Somehow the silence was worse. Neither Chad nor I spoke at first. For several seconds a tense silence hung between us. Every nerve in my body demanded that I run, but suddenly every tree was too close, the foliage was too thick. I still felt watched, and I kept envisioning countless spindly limbs emerging from the greenery to drag me away, just like they had Keelan. Cabins, Chad finally said, his voice cracking. His eyes were still wide with terror. Get back to the cabins. He put an arm on my shoulder, forcing me to move. I wasn't in any position to fight or to argue. I just let him take me. Keelan's screams echoed in my mind. I kept telling myself that maybe he could still get away. Maybe we could save him somehow. Maybe. I knew I was lying to myself. I knew he was dead. I was back in the cabin when Adam and the others returned. Apparently everyone had been called in due to the weather despite the fact that the rain wasn't that heavy. Well, look who's back. Adam scoffed once he saw me. Where's Keelan? Jerking off? Leo teased. I glared at both of them. The look in my eye made Adam pause for a moment. Keelan's gone, I said softly. Something took him. I'm sorry, what do you mean something took him? Adam asked, eyes narrowing. He sat down on his bed, staring intently at me. There was an uncomfortable bitterness in his eyes. Leo and Matthew lounged on their own beds, listening intently. I saw it drag him up into the trees, I said. He was screaming, and screaming, and screaming until, well, he wasn't. Their eyes were trained on me. I could see the disbelief in them. You can ask Lieutenant Chad if you don't believe me. He saw it. He saw exactly what I saw. Leo and Matthew both looked to Adam, as if trying to gauge how they should react. Adam remained stoic. He just leaned forward, staring at nothing. He thought for a few moments before speaking again. Did it go after him specifically? What? I don't know. He was trying to call an Uber or something. I stepped away for a minute to talk to the lieutenant, and then we heard a scream. When we looked back, he was gone. Adam nodded. I see, so God's justice is done. I could only stare at him in disbelief. What? You said so yourself, Avery. Whatever you saw out there, it singled him out. It chose to take him. It waited until you'd left him alone, and then it disposed of him. I think the message is clear. What fucking message? I snapped. We all knew what kind of man Keelan really was. He pretended to be one of us, but I think we all saw the depravity in his heart. Sneaking off early every night, hiding his phone from us, and yes, I suspected he was hiding it. We all knew what he was doing. It was why he could never truly be one of us. You can't be a man of God and a supporter of sexual sin. Pornography, fornication, adultery, it's all the same thing in God's eyes. Lust is a tool of the devil. There's no room for it in God's army. Seems Keelan's sin caught up with him, just as I said they would. He abandoned God, and see now how he has been abandoned. From where I sit, it's cut and dry. I'd never seen a person vomit up that much bullshit in one sitting before, although Leo and Matthew just sat there, as if he just bestowed some kind of sagely wisdom upon them. Adam's cold blue eyes locked with mine. You though. I think you've been given a second chance, Avery. Whether or not you waste it is up to you. Between you and me, I don't really care anymore. He left it at that. He didn't waste another word on me. And since then, all has been quiet. Leo, Matthew, and Adam have managed to find a couple of old board games to pass the time. Somehow Leo managed to talk them into playing Risk. None of them have really spoken to me, but that suits me fine. Right now, I'd rather be anywhere else than trapped in this fucking cabin with them. It's gotten dark outside. I keep glancing out the window. I can't see anything out there, but the darkness doesn't feel empty. I feel watched. Tomorrow I might try and make it to the road. Maybe I can flag down a passing car, No. Something in my gut tells me that I won't make it to the road if I try that. Whatever is out there, whatever killed Cody and Keelan, it doesn't want us to leave. I'll figure something else out. There's still cell phones in the office. Maybe I can still call for help. I'm not going to fucking die out here, and I don't need God to save me.